Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. In a moment, we'll have the press briefing of the spokesman of the Information and Analytical Center of the Council for National Defense and Security.
A press briefing by the spokesperson of Information and Analytical Center of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Colonel Andriy Lysenko.
Good afternoon. During yesterday's working visit to Brussels, the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, met the Prime Minister of UK, David Cameron. Poroshenko expressed gratitude to David Cameron for the consistent position of the United Kingdom in protecting the integrity of Ukraine. Petro Poroshenko and David Cameron agreed about the coordination of efforts in the context of realization of the peace plan for Donbass, and they also plan to continue their dialogue about the ways to counteract aggression at the summit of NATO in the beginning of September in UK. In his talk with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, the President of Ukraine emphasized the importance of the consolidated, resolute support of our state on the part of European Union countries. The President emphasized that the world should not forget about the tragedy of the crash of Boeing 777 of Malaysian Airlines. It is in our common interest to complete the comprehensive, transparent, and objective international investigation of the crash and make its official results published. Because of the sharpening of the situation in Ukraine, our country has the intention to talk to the European Union about the broadening of the list of weapons that can be delivered to our country. Ukraine has an intention to talk in more detail about this on the summit of NATO in Wales. Petro Poroshenko said this in Brussels. He also said that EU countries are ready to provide military technical support to Ukraine. In their summing up results, the European Union called upon Russia to immediately withdraw its troops from Ukraine. EU also condemned the unlawful annexation of Crimea, the delivery of weapons and militants from the territory of Russia to the east of Ukraine, and the aggression on the part of the Russian armed forces on the territory of Ukraine. Besides, the European Council underlined the importance of the immediate realization of the peace plan of President Poroshenko, and they also stated about the urgent necessity of a stable political solution based on the respect to the sovereignty of Ukraine, territorial integrity, unity, and independence. The first step should be composed of the mutually agreed ceasefire, the restoration of Ukrainian control over the borders, immediate stopping of the flows of weapons, machinery, and personnel from Russian Federation into Ukraine, and also urgent release of all hostages that are kept by unlawful armed formations and of prisoners in the Russian Federation, EU says. The situation in the region of the anti-terrorist operations remains tense. The terrorists and Russian military continue to concentrate personnel and armored vehicles in regional centers. They are fortifying their positions in Amvrosiyevsky, Stavrobeshevo, and Novozovsk districts. During the 30th of August, combat actions took place in Starobeshevo, Ilovaisk, Kruglik, and next to the Luhansk airport. Over the last 24 hours, the anti-terrorist operations destroyed 2 tanks, Uragan, and 6 Grad batteries, and also more than 100 paramilitaries. In particular, a unit of paramilitaries was destroyed, liquidated on the northern suburb of outskirts of Petrovsk. Over the last 24 hours, anti-terrorist operation forces exchanged fire 33 times with terrorists and Russian military in the vicinity of settlements starting from Stanitsa Luhanska to Fashivka and Luhansk airport. The shelling of positions of Ukrainian forces continues from the territory of the Russian Federation, in particular of the Ukrainian armed forces not far from Horodisha settlement. The Russians have used guided anti-tank missiles. Also, the line of the state border of Ukraine was shelled, as well as the bridge over the River Commissioner, not far from Nizhny-Baranivka village, as well as in the village of Makarove. The Russian continues air reconnaissance with the help of drones. Over the last 24 hours, 4 Russian drones were detected in Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Yesterday, at around 9 p.m., at the Hoptivka crossing point in Kharkiv region, the Russian side was handed over 9 commandos of Russian Federation who were detained on the territory of Ukraine. After this, at 3 a.m., the Russian bodyguards handed over 63 members of National Guards of Ukraine to Ukraine. The Russian terrorists continue to ruin the infrastructure of Donbass. Yesterday at around 6:30 p.m., the Russian terrorists shelled the Lutuhine Scientific Association. They were firing from the direction of Volnukhin and Krasnodon. Not far from the village of Granitne, Telman district, the terrorists have blown up the car bridge over the river of Kalmius. On the territory of Novoazovsk, the Russian occupants continue to use the methods of fascist military propaganda. In particular, they broadened the instructions for the residents of Azov region how to behave with the peacemaking contingent of the Russian troops. They say that the Russians have come as seemingly in accordance to the Geneva Convention of 1949 to protect local residents from the terrorists from illegal Ukrainian army. They also call upon local residents to observe curfew and to be ready to vacate their dwellings to place the so-called peace forces there. They also suggest that the so-called liberated territories should be people in them should speak only Russian and provide the peacekeepers the information on the location of armed units of Ukraine, also to prepare the lists of Ukrainian military participants in Maidan and pro-Ukrainian public activists, for which the residents are promised benefits and food. And the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation guarantees that no one will be shot just for doing this. Yesterday, the State Emergency Service detected and defused 163 units of ammunition and explosive devices. Yesterday, the National Guards of Ukraine presented one of helicopters Mi-8 MTV-1 that the previous regime has handed for hire to the company Ukrainian Helicopters, and these helicopters are now back to work in the anti-terrorist operation zone. You can see this on video. The modernized helicopter has modern equipment for the evacuation of heavily wounded. They have the rehabilitation and intensive care module for the patients, 6 carriers for heavily wounded. The crew of the helicopter includes 2 doctors, and during the flight, emergency medical help may be provided. Besides, the National Guards in the zone of anti-terrorist operation now has another 3 modernized helicopters to evacuate wounded and provide with the opportunity to provide them with the first medical aid, and 2 transportation helicopters Mi-8 MTV-1 which may transport up to 12 wounded. Your questions, please. My question is about the situation in Crimea. Is there a concentration of Russian troops and the massing of their numbers in Crimea? Is there a danger to Mykolaiv and Kherson and Odessa regions? And is there a threat from Transnistria to Odessa region? As far as we know, on the territory of the temporarily occupied Republic of Crimea, there is a very high concentration of Russian troops. We are watching their movements. However, we do not see any active movement by mass groups into the direction of the Ukrainian border. We monitor the entire situation. Could you dwell in more detail about on the situation in Ilovaisk? We do not disclose details about the operation to provide the withdrawal of our troops from Ilovaisk. Are they now coming out? The operation continues. Any other questions? Georgian television. We have information that there are Georgians also in the encirclement next to Ilovaisk. No, we don't have such information. Where are they? Are they on the Ukrainian side? Yes, they are on the Ukrainian side. No, I'm not prepared to tell you anything at the moment. We are from the Georgian TV company. The German newspaper Die Zeit. What about the situation in Ilovaisk? Without comments, but the Ukrainian troops there, they are encircled by the separatists or by the Russian armed forces. At the moment, you know, the terrorists did not have enough force to seize Ilovaisk without the support of heavily armed Russian forces. They are there. During the withdrawal of one of the groups, several Russian commandos were taken prisoners. There is such a fact, however, I don't have any details at the moment. There is an information that in Donetsk there are regular units of Russian army, some specific military units. Do you have such information? We have the information that regular units of the Russian Federation have entered the territory of Ukraine, so we are not surprised that they are being seen in Donetsk now.
About the proposal by Russia to send in a second humanitarian convoy. We understand that some kind of preliminary agreement was reached, but there is no further information on that. Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself?
Thank you.
Associated Press.
Thank you.
Була
There was a note from the Russian Ministry for Foreign Affairs that they have the intention to deliver another humanitarian cargo to Ukraine. Preliminarily, there was an agreement that they send this cargo by railway to the border of Ukraine. There was also talk about the transfer of this cargo to representatives of the International Red Cross Committee. However, this is all information that we have. We still don't know what is the size of the cargo and where it is going. It's all in the process of negotiations now. Is it true that Donetsk airport was seized by paramilitaries? We don't have such information.
Radio 24. Can you give us, please, more information about how looks like the Russian army exactly detailed things around Mariupol? If you can give us, please, detailed news about Russian army facing Mariupol. Thank you very much.
Mariupol at the moment is in defense position. There are Ukrainian troops and heavy machinery that are capable of providing can repel terrorists and Russian troops that are supporting the terrorists. However, we still don't have exact information about how many tanks and APCs are in Novoazovsk and adjacent territories. We are monitoring the situation there. Our intelligence is working there. We have sources that inform us on the movement of those convoys. We know that yesterday the representatives of OSCE who came to Mariupol, through them, because of their arrival, the Russians were made to withdraw new tanks from Novoazovsk, and they left there just one old tank in order to deceive OSCE representatives. We have the information that newer armored vehicles are next to Novoazovsk in other districts of the region. Putin said a couple of minutes ago that there is a certain agreement with Poroshenko on the peace plan. The president of Ukraine has really offered a peace plan of regulation of settlement in the east of Ukraine, which in particular provides for the mutual ceasefire, the release of all the hostages that terrorists have, the release of our prisoners in the territory of the Russian Federation, joint patrolling of Ukrainian-Russian border by Ukrainian and Russian border guards together with OSCE representatives of the monitoring mission. And tomorrow the consultations will continue of the trilateral group. The Ukraine will be represented by Leonid Kuchma, the second president of Ukraine. From Russia, there will be Mikhail Zurabov, who is the ambassador of Russia in Ukraine. And we think that it is these negotiations that will become a second stage and they will bring certain results, because yesterday there were first consultations between general staffs of Ukraine and Russian Federation, and they talked about the control of the state border between Ukraine and Russia, so that there's no movement across the border of convoys of armored vehicles and mercenaries, so that the border is closed. This is one of the major prerequisites.
Can you comment on how many regular Russian troops are at the moment on Ukrainian ground?
We do not have exact figures of the personnel of the armed forces of Russian Federation on the territory of Ukraine before they actively went into the territory of Ukraine. We counted, we knew that almost 45,000 Russian troops were amassed along the border with Ukraine. And this figure applies to armed forces, special units, and ministry and personnel of the Ministry of Interior of the Russian Federation.
The exchange of prisoners, would you say that was a preliminary confidence-building measure as part of the peace plan? And did you debrief your soldiers who've been returned, and do they have anything interesting to say? Thank you.
I must tell that what has happened tonight does not have the status of the exchange of prisoners, because we are not at war with Russia. We do not have prisoners. We have people who were detained on the territory which they entered unlawfully. As far as the Ukrainian servicemen are concerned, they went to the Russian territory on the 27th of August. Under the pressure of Russian-supported terrorists, they crossed the border with the Russian Federation. However, this happened in accordance with the norms of international law, humanitarian law. They crossed the border without arms, and they officially asked for permit to go into Russian territory after having explained the situation. As far as Russian military are concerned, they were detained in the depths of Ukrainian territory. They had live ammunition in their weapons. They were charged with the suspicion of cooperation with terrorist formations, the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. They had 4 points on which they were charged. First, the unlawful crossing of the border of Ukraine. Second, unlawful possession of arms. Third, cooperation with the terrorist grouping. And fourth, abetting in the activity of the terrorist group. And these are the 4 major points that they were charged with. However, Ukraine has made a step forward. This is one of the major steps towards the Russian Federation. They were not taken to court. They were transferred, handed over to Russia. They were treated in a humane way, and the representatives of the International Red Cross were invited to check what were the conditions that the Russian military were kept in, and we still don't have information from Ukrainian military about the conditions they were kept in Russia. No other questions. Thank you very much, Colonel.